Hey, what is up, YouTube? This is Dave Croft. I hope that you guys are all doing well out there today. Welcome back to another quick tip for working composers. In a previous video that I'll have linked right above, I talked about my mix and master method for an orchestral cue, and I kind of breezed over the actual mixing part of it and why I do and why I do what I do and why I mix the way I mix. So that's what we're going to be looking at today, what I consider a foolproof method to mixing your cues to get you faster at mixing, to get you better at mixing, and ultimately so that you can keep cranking out cues and making money, hopefully making money, making music. So that's what we're going to be doing on today's quick tip for working composers. Okay, I have this cue pulled up. It's called Sun Up to Sundown Drive. It's brand new. I've not mixed it or mastered it yet, but I'm about ready to send it off to the publisher, hopefully, just this morning. And I wanted to walk you through my mixing process. So the first thing we want to do is we want to find the loudest sustained portion of our cue, and that's when all of the sounds are coming in. And this is going to be kind of the reference point throughout the entire mix that we are going to mix and master from. And that's typically when all of the sounds are in and all of the volumes and velocities are as loud as they are. And so I know that it is right here. I'm going to go a little bit before because I have some things that need to fire right actually before the beat. And let's see how that sounds. All right, so everything is all coming together. Now I have gone ahead and put my EQs, and perhaps that's another video. I've gone ahead and done my EQs. But I'm in my loudest sustained portion. This is as loud as the cue is going to get. So the first thing I want to do is I am going to flatten all of my faders. I'm going to turn off any automation if I have, and I think I do have, if I have any, I think I do have one here on this guitar pad because there was some reverb tails or some delays that were kind of carrying over past the end of the button there. So I'm going to flatten the faders. I'm not going to take any screenshots. I'm not going to write a bunch of things down, write a bunch of numbers. Just going to flatten the faders. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to bring in whatever is the most important aspect of my cue, and that's going to be this kind of melodic idea. All right, so this kind of like this. All right, now I'll bring in the pad. And I'm bringing things in descending order. Again, just bringing things in descending order. These actually don't come until the very, very end and the very beginning. They're just kind of this long sustained streak. Okay, now as I'm mixing, I'm keeping a target out for my output volume. I need to leave enough headroom for my mastering chain. And so that is going to be between 4 and 6 dB. It's a little hot, but it's all right. I'll actually take it to the end there. Okay, so that is mix number 1. Pretty happy with that. It's a little warm in my output, but I think it's okay, especially since this publisher I know likes really hot mixes. All right, so the second thing I'm going to do is once I've gotten a good mix, I'm going to flatten my faders again. Okay, I'm not going to take any screenshots. I'm not going to write a bunch of numbers down. I'm just going to flatten my faders again. And now when I bring this in, now when I mix again, I'm going to bring in something deliberately new, or which I know is not the most important aspect of my mix. That's what I'm going to bring in first. And by doing this, I'm pushing it to the front of the mix, and everything is going to get mixed in relation to that. The way I like to think of it is whatever you bring in first whenever you're mixing becomes the sun, the gravitational pull around which the entire mix revolves. So let's bring in something that I know is not necessarily the most important thing. So let's bring in the horn line first here. I don't think the horns come in until right here. All right, so this just kind of, this orchestral winds. Let's go ahead and bring in the pads too. You know what? I'm going to hold off on that, actually. So I'm bringing it almost in descending order, completely. Now, why do we even bother doing this? Well, by pushing something else into the center of your mix, you are forcing yourself to hear your mix in a new way. I believe that it makes you create a subtly different mix that maybe you wouldn't have discovered on your own. And it's really interesting how subtly different these second mixes can be when you put something that you know isn't necessarily the most important thing. You put that front and center, then everything revolves around it, and you're just given a different view of your mix that's just like I said, just subtly different from the first mix. The energy is usually a little different. Energy is usually a little different, and things which weren't as important are now put out into the front. And there are many times that I like this mix, and I discover aspects of the mix that maybe I didn't necessarily notice before because you kind of get into your own head and you're like, this is the way the mix should be. And by putting something else in previously or putting something else in first, it makes you hear your mix in a new light. At least it does for me. All right, pretty happy with that. Let's go for our third mix. Okay, just flatten your faders, bring them all down. Again, if you have automation, go ahead and turn that off. Just flatten your mix, and then start again with the most important aspect. Now, this could have changed, and that's okay. Allow yourself to change your own mind. it's really soft. Trying to hear it. All right, my mix is a little hot, but I'm liking where we're going. So I'm going to, here in the Logic, I'm going to shift select all these and pull them all down. All right, now I'm going to go back to the very beginning and just spot check some things that I need to bring this guy in. Like I said, just kind of spot checking some things. The bass can be a little bit louder. Something got a little hot back there. Seeing where that is. Might be when that tom fill comes in. No? Might just be maybe this guy right there. Yeah, I'm all right with that. Now, if you wanted to add fader automation, you could absolutely do that. I tend to not do a ton of fader automation, especially since I do so much work with modulation programming, and fader automation just kind of steps on that. With the exception of any live audio, then I put a ton more process onto my tracks with live audio than I do with MIDI. So the shortcut, or the thing to think about is flatten, mix, flatten, mix, flatten, mix, and then add your mastering chain, which we did in the other video. And there are some very tangible benefits of doing this. The first benefit is that you get over your fear of touching the faders. And that's a really real fear. And I know that because I have been there. You know, you've working with the track for so long, and you don't want to touch your faders because you feel like you've gotten it perfectly, and if you mess with your faders, then you can't ever get back to that mix. And that you might have stumbled into a great mix, but if you're dealing with clients and they want you to fix something, then you're kind of stuck. If you just stumble into a mix, then your only solution is to try to stumble into a fix for a problem. If they say it's too muddy, or if it's too airy, or whatever. You know, it sounds too thin. If you don't know how you got there, then you have really no hope of trying to fix it. The other thing is you get to know your track very intimately. And each cue has its own life. Each cue has its own quirks. And you should approach mixing each cue from a unique perspective and treat each one differently. Yes, they're all your children, but they each have their own personalities, and so you get to know each track very, very intimately and how it's all pieced together. Now, you do get better at this, and you do get faster at this the more you do it, and you will find tendencies in your own your own pieces. I know I do. I know where I tend to gang things up, either from just my compositional influences or the fact that I'm a percussionist, and I kind of know where some of my own trouble spots lie just from having done so many tracks. But again, you get over your fear of touching your faders. You get to know each specific track very intimately, and you get better at mixing, and you get faster at mixing. Now, this mixing method was taught to me by a fellow professor at Full Sail University. This is a professor that has credits with the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and whatever you think about those bands is kind of irrelevant when this professor literally has platinum records on his wall. So I'm going to listen to what he has to say, and this is what he does. Now, there are times, a couple of things. There are times when I don't want to do this. There are times when I'm either tired or my back's against the wall with a deadline, and I can't be bothered to do it. But I will say, I've never regretted doing this, but I've absolutely regretted not doing this. Okay, so there will be times when you're not going to feel like it, where it's a real drag. And if you're feeling like and you have the time, then walk away and then come back to it with some fresh ears. And I think that it will sound better and feel better. Okay. The other thing is that sometimes the third mix isn't the charm. Sometimes you'll have to do it maybe 4 or 5 mixes. Do it a minimum of 3 mixes: the flatten mix, flatten mix, flatten mix, and then add your mastering chain. Do a minimum of 3, but if it takes 4 or 5, then that's okay. I promise you this is worth it. I've been teaching this at Full Sail for 7 years, and I have yet to have a student come back and tell me that this is crazy and this doesn't work. So I challenge you to try it with some of your cues, maybe that you've already got written, and see if it works for you. And so, yeah, thanks for joining me today. I hope you found that helpful, and I hope it wasn't too kind of rambly. As always, the usual kind of YouTube things. If you like what you hear and you want more of these kind of videos, please consider subscribing or hitting that thumbs up, or even supporting me on Patreon. And yeah, I love teaching. I love writing, and so my YouTube channel is an option for me to put those together beyond just kind of a university setting. So thank you guys very much for joining me, and until next time, peace.